interesting topic that we have to talk about. We should really be talking about it everywhere in the world because it's really what's been happening for at very minimum the last 1,000 years is that the pedophile elite have been in charge. And in Hawaii, they've been in charge since the monarchy, since the overthrow, since 1893, is we can really pinpoint the foreign pedophiles coming in and doing what they've done for, which will soon be 133 years. And it is the longest standing occupation in modern history. Is the US government tied to the Crown of England, the Vatican Church, and running a pyramid Ponzi scheme while occupying the wealthiest nation in the world. And it's fascinating how our history books taught us to idolize and memorialize pedophiles as heroes. And it's actually quite sickening. And so as the pedophile elite lists start to be rolled out and Hawaii's Diddy list starts to be rolled out, um, people will find that it was right in front of their faces the whole time and they did nothing. And they actually participated in helping the pedophiles continue to maintain the genocide, the land grabbing, the human trafficking, the land trafficking, the child trafficking, and the trafficking of legal and illegal immigrants in and out of the archipelago. Because all of it is unlawful. And as you look at U.S. Public Law 103-150, you can call it a resolution, a joint resolution. You can call it a confession. You can call it the apology bill. And then you can look at who signed it. And then right there is your start for those of you guys who are new to the research party about this subject matter. For you guys, it's time for you guys to start picking up the pace and stop having cognitive dissonance because you guys are, America and Hawaii are not the metes and bounds. The longitudes and latitudes aren't the same. The history of Hawaii before and after the overthrow is a very key, important thing to discuss as we are in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And even in their public law, joint resolution, confession, apology, with the wrong recourse taken, the wrong, it was so great, they just couldn't leave. They just had to keep using the Hawaiian Island archipelago like Epstein's Island on steroids. And it's really sad because for many people who go to work and they go to their employment and they work for whether it's the state or people who have businesses in the state of Hawaii, I think that you guys gotta really understand what you're doing. I don't think a lot of you understand that you are supporting your own human trafficking experience and you're supporting the genocide of everyone around you here because you choose to have ignorance about the truth and the facts and findings and conclusions of law in Hawaii. And so on the ground, things are moving very quickly here. And a lot of the pedophiles have already been reported to be looked into, I guess you could say that. But the ministries here in Hawaii, it gets a lot of details and it gets a lot of data. And, you know, being Kanaka Maoli mix, being an original of the DNA of this Aina, amongst others around the world because of the invasion, because of the insurgency, the insurrection, and the overthrow. And, you know, it's really, really sad that it's taken all of these like over 100 years just for Hawaiians to recover, to re-find their identity, and to talk about it in a way that is not branded and labeled by the occupier and or all ideologies stemming to bringing it to where we live. And what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to find out that their religious beliefs are the things that aid and abet this whole war machine. You're going to find out that the money that you use today, if you're still using fiat currency, is human trafficking and child trafficking money. You're going to find out that you have a misrepresentation of who you are that was provided to you at your birth without full disclosure today. And a lot of people want to argue to keep that ideology of a citizen. And if you really knew what that was and you opened up a Black Laws dictionary and you started to read outside of what they've given us in indoctrination camp, K through 12, you're going to find out that the way that many people interpreted things isn't accurate. And because it ain't accurate, it's kind of like propaganda. And if your life is built on ideologies built on propaganda, and you can't stand in your DNA format, that's why they had all their agendas. But at the end of the day, we're in the age of Aquarius and we're in a new era. We're coming out of that age where pedophiles ruled. It doesn't mean that we don't have to look everywhere around us, in our neighborhoods, in our leadership, in our governments, and our jobs, and our bosses, and all of those things. It's pretty easy for me. I don't have any moral quandary about being wise. You can't have pedophiles running anything, creating languages, creating laws, creating policies, creating communities, creating children, grooming children, creating predators, creating super predators, while being in charge of everything that gives them power and perception. But as the swamp continues and will maintain getting drained, 2025 is a big year. It's the year of the snake. And Kanaka, for those of you who have been branded and been calling yourself Hawaiian Native, you better stop it. Maybe you are Hawaiian Native though. Maybe you don't have Kanaka bloodline. But maybe you were born here, right? We don't want anybody educating ourselves. As a matter of fact, everybody's gonna have to bring me their paperwork pretty soon, because if you didn't check those ingredients and you took those SHOTS, the ones that came and gone in a certain terminology period, because there were no ingredients and you took it, how dare you think that I could trust your judgment and your research and development, or what you feel about your liberties and your freedoms? We're in Kohawaii Pai'aina. We're in the Polynesian realm. We are not in the places that have been misidentified. And for those people who talk about always wanting to be right and being righteous and being this and that, well, this is a time for you to start looking in the mirror. Hawaii is not a state. It is a de facto government. Extremely de facto. And the moving forward of Hawaii, I like to call it the queendom for now, so I can piss all the kingdom, all these so-called kings off, because ole. Aole, 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 aole. Some of you pukura aole. You ain't doing the right thing. You guys are sepeps. You guys are like, you guys are, some of the people in the kingdom are part of the problem is just as much as the state. It's just as much as the bishop of state. Just as much as the committee of safety from a foreign entity that's supposedly a government, that's a corporation, that's managed through So anyways, this is where we're going with things. Can't have pedophiles in charge. Can't have pedophiles in government. You can't be human trafficking kids in and out of the ports of Kohaba'i Pai'aina. Or what you guys will find out even beyond Kamehameha and Kaumuli'i, there's DNA before that. And you're gonna find out that the Konihiki bloodlines all know about that too, well, to some degree. And it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to keep on doing the wrong thing, pretending that you're doing the right thing and living a fraudulent life here in Hawaii. Because if you look at all the laws, whether it's Hawaiian Kingdom, you look at U.S. Supreme Court law, you look at international law with the UN, whatever. If you can read, that's what I find so fascinating. Everybody thinks that they need a degree, but if they really forget Baroque and just pretend from be right, because your quality of life doesn't resonate the reality that preaching. I don't like preachers who don't live an example. I don't, yeah, no thanks. Some like the preachers that I grew up with, they were pedophiles. All in the church, all in the state government, they're all in the U.S. government too. And these guys, and they're big daddies and they're whatever. Yeah, like names like Rockefeller and Rothschild, things like that. Like when you find out that, Mark Zuckerberg is in that family genealogy, but see, why do they keep the genealogy so shh? And why do they need corporations to block their shh? And why would you need legal irrevocable trust inside one lawful place that you don't even have and obtain lawfully? It's very ironic how people allow bullies to pick on them and hope that their neighbors go out and do all the work. And then they say that they're equal. We're not equal. You never do the work. You're not doing what's necessary to cleanse out and emulate what's going to come after 2025. That's just the reality. It's not going to slow down. The gravy train is moving forward already. Because you have to be out of your mind. There is no way that you and sentient being and that you can understand and comprehend if you don't know who's behind your banking system and creating languages that created your laws. That's a very interesting concept. So moving forward, the leadership of Hawaii, we who are standing together, all of us nationals and Konihikis and originals, aboriginals, indigenous, and Hawaiian natives, you better come back home correctly. Because right now you mislabeled as chattel. And you need to come home through a process to get you interned back to where you were nationalized to. Not be one citizen occupying one place that you're not supposed to be in and violating laws and international laws. Like I can literally say that the citizens here in Hawaii, they're literally the jihad for the USA. We already know what they did at the border this last couple of years, what the DHS has been accused of, the biggest human trafficking operation. And while they were focused on the border, they weren't just focused on the border. They were focused through human trafficking kids from good families to the court systems, the British, they swear a bar to the BAR, British Accredited Registry, all the courts across on the landmass that's not on the Aina of Europe. That's all one occupation. That's all one human trafficking operation. That's all adhesion contracts tied to usury without full disclosure. That's just the reality of the reality, my brothers and sisters. Wherever you're at around the world, you can get angry, you can try to dispute me, but go, hey, if I call you to a debate and win battle, I expect you to show up and defend yourself, just like I've had to defend myself to find out who I was after being trafficked myself by the pedophiles. That's why it's very different for the rest of us who've already waken up with the consciousness and the DNA that's activated that they want to get to so that they can clone. It's really, really disgusting what they're doing. And the people should know about it. The ones that do know about it are so freaking scared. And they don't know what to do because they don't have enough money. And the money is the problem. The fiat is 100% the problem. It's the racketeering operation. It's the exploitation operation. It's the genocidal war machine operation that is really unnecessary at this point. It doesn't need to be here. They don't think that the Hawaiians have self-determination because they're playing the game on an uneven playing board with 100+ year advantage and with citizens who are educated in history and property. And the citizens are picking up the tab and paying the taxes and working for them, which is why that will all end here. That's one of the peaceful ways that each of us can individually participate. The economic stuff, we got that. But that's not taking money from the government. That's learning how to stand on your sovereignty. And many of you who claim you are not. You can't be a sovereign citizen here in Hawaii. It doesn't work that way. And you can have dual nationalization, you just don't want dual citizenship. You see, there's a big difference. But if they taught that K through 12, we would have had this problem solved. But right now, the focus is on the human traffickers because they're the pedophiles and they're the elite and they got their minions across the world. Now that Donald Trump is back in office, that shit's gonna slow down a lot. Doesn't mean that all of us are gonna have to figure out how to protect our national securities, which is where tariffs are gonna come in. The treaties are being signed. And regardless of people are there or not, things are taking place. We need to end this child trafficking and human trafficking and exploitation operation that's been funded by the same people that you guys idolize. Right below the God they gave you. And for me, I don't serve that God. With clarity and understanding, the Hawaiians had our own sense of spirituality. And no one is going to tell me differently where I live, in the realm where I live, where this stuff was brought to this place before I was born as an apartheid kid. I have a good awareness of what's going on. And so does the ministries team. I'm very proud of everyone. It's been a very big journey. Being trafficked and trying to become untrafficked and knowing and finding out who you are and why it's so important that they're trying to take you and take your mind and your energy and your labor and everything through adhesion contracts. I ask that Keokua and that Io bless us all. That brings clarity and unity and surrounding in a message that unifies us all and uplifts humanity and allows us to re-educate ourselves voluntarily through a time period where there's revolutions going on right now. Maybe not in your neighborhood. Maybe you don't see it. Maybe you're not getting out. Maybe you're not contacting and getting a hold of your neighbors. Maybe you're not sitting in town hall meetings. Maybe you're not going out and getting the data collection for yourself. The pushback is already happening. People are freaking out. They don't understand how this all ties together, but then all of a sudden they do. 2020, it was like speaking to people in a whole different language. Now with all of the Diddy list being released, that it's all gonna tie back to the Crown of England and other Zionist freaks who like to sodomize and fuck children and as a part of their quality of living and groom more predators to do the same exact thing. And they've been doing it. Let's just call it 100 years. You gotta clean up 100 years of a mess. And it's been longer than that. So they like normalize hypersexuality, hyper delusional behavior and codependence on some freaking pimp, and the pimp happens to be the government in this case, funding it. What kind of government would do that if they cared about the people? What kind of government would allow their soldiers to be getting just left in Afghanistan after being pulled out? What do you think is going to have to happen in Hawaii? I'll tell you what, the military is supposed to be following orders and the Constitution. And FM 27-10 and 5 are for the citizens, the civilians, and the military here. This is our opportunity to not get angry at the person who's the messenger. It's time to challenge yourself and your belief systems and your ideologies that you were taught, and test yourself if you're being honest or not. Because that's what you would hope from anybody. And so all of this ties to the human trafficking that's happening in Hawaii. All of this ties to the pedophiles. All of this ties to the smuggling of children in and out, the harvesting of organs and Crenadrol. And it's really easy to see who's the problem right now. And us as civilians around the world, we should be looking and not having any cognitive dissonance. We should be talking about this and learning about ourselves through this. How did we go so long with living with pedophiles being in charge and never second guessing it, or being that defeated slave and just being complicit with it? So, all of this stuff for us in Hawaii as we unify together in one mindset, kapuna nakiki. The children are forbidden. Fuck with the kids. It's taboo in Hawaii. The indigenous people, they don't want that here. I'm pretty sure all of the invaders, most of them don't want it here too. But a lot of them know that they're a part of the problem. And how do you get away from that without denouncing who you are publicly, and then figuring out the paperwork to do so that takes you out of that so-called de facto jurisdiction? There's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot of really excellent teachers about these subject matters. I'm just very grateful that I'm living in these times and being able to stand in truth as a minister of light. And amongst other things, you guys are going to find out, but as we continue to rescue children from the atrocities of these predators, it's time for you to take a look at yourself and ask yourself, how am I impacting this? And then it's time to ask yourself, wherever you're at in your local area, are we protecting the kids where we're at? And if you had kids in the future, would they want to be where you're at? Yep. People are moving and flocking. So, it's definitely a heavy subject to talk about. We're going to leave it as that right now. And for here on YouTube, this is where I'll roll out updates and release content right now. For those of you who are in Hawaii, as you are privately being invited to the social network, so that you can be Mark Zuckerberg's social network, especially if you're Hawaiian. Because the data is very important for them. It's also important for you. Keeping your autonomy is not something that Mark Zuckerberg just confessed to. And he basically confessed to treason. So I hope people see what really happened in the last 4 years and have awakened. And for those of you guys who are woke, it's time for you to awaken. How you feel does matter. And what you know does matter. And how you apply both definitely does matter. And I see a lot of people in Hawaii walking away from all political parties in the state of Hawaii. No one is going to run in an election once they realize that it's treason. But everybody's been doing it for so long, and that's how they get their money. The Hawaiians will no longer need to utilize cash here. We have our own money system already, which is very, very important. That's the way that you can start saying no and removing yourself from applying yourself in those contracts and those capacities. And we get to teach this. So that's why people are going to like and subscribe. They'll probably share this video. I would share this video with people in Hawaii. I would share this people with your friends in America. And I would let the USA know you got to un-USA and go. Well, we can go to the Republic, but then you have to nationalize to do that. They didn't make it easy. And then even before the Republic, there's a Mexican. And you guys have to deal with all of our indigenous brothers and sisters that are also being called native on the meats and bounds of North America. It can be done. And it is already being worked on. And a lot of progress has already been moved forward. So we'll end on that note. For now, definitely on my heart to share and talk about, especially because it's happening. There's so many cases that the ministry is getting access to. It's unbelievable the atrocities that are happening to the children and how they're using teenagers and little girls to breed babies to sell on the black market. And the babies here in Hawaii go for a lot of money. You got a certain type of DNA. It's really sick. The trade of trafficking for the pedophiles is a very sick and demented and fascist structural system. So we don't have to use that. And we refuse to use that. And more will come out denouncing it. And tariffs will be laid out. It's just the way that it's supposed to be. So for the Kanaka, for you, the Kanaka mix, the ones that came before the Hawaiian Native category. And for those of you who are Hawaiian Native, that's the first thing I try to figure out is if you are Kanaka Maoli. Kanaka. Okay? That's what I would figure out. I would stop using the word and the terminology Hawaiian Native. It's a miscategory of your identity. And America should be going back to American nationals. Donald Trump. You have to figure out, how to end those private corporation agencies that were appointed by those who already betrayed us all. They betrayed our ancestors, and they will betray our children and our future ancestors. All right, guys. Have a blissful day. Aloha kako.